Welcome to the Everyone's a Critic Movie Review Podcast 1993. I'm your host, Sean Patrick. With me, co-host Jeff.
What's up?
And Amy's here.
Bonsoir.
Yeah, and no MJ this week.
No, which is a shame because there's a moment that I have to actually send MJ after this because...
I really was hoping you would see this, but...
Yeah, that's all right. Still.
Nevertheless.
Yeah.
We're talking about The Crying Game, released in 1992 in America in 1993. This was, of course, the post-Oscar qualifying run, the run that they put out after it got nominated. It became a big thing, and Jaye Davidson became a big thing, so they put it out into theaters nationwide finally, and everybody finally got lit in on what was going on with this movie. But really, it begins as just a story of the Irish Republican Army and their continuing battle against the British. A British soldier, played by Forrest Whitaker, is in Ireland. He is captured and held with hopes that the British will release an Irish army member. When that doesn't happen, they have to kill Forrest Whitaker, and that sets in motion the rest of the story, which is really throughout, Jeff. The entire movie is really about... It's about intimacy. It's about men who are trying to understand themselves, one who seemingly understands himself a little bit better than the other. And I found that theme to be very fascinating.
Is that what this was about?
We watched a different film.
Wait a minute, I thought it was something completely different. No, yeah, I mean, you get that, even with some of the last shots with, after everything goes down and he's sitting there waiting for the police to show up and he's leaning back and in the foreground is the photo of Forrest Whitaker leaning back.
Yeah.
So it's almost like they're back to back.
Mm-hmm. It was very similar to some classic 1960s Swedish cinema, I thought.
Yeah. Yeah, that's my favorite genre. No, I think that, the main theme is, overcoming your prejudices to become more evolved and more of a human being instead of just taking sides, whether it be the army or your sexuality or whatever. It's about letting all that stuff go and just being with a person.
Well, and that's what you brought that up too in the middle of the film, and I could not agree more. We're looking at 92, 93, and what an unbelievably evolved film it was. I think that's what blew me away the most. And again, Jaye Davidson's just absolutely beautiful in this movie. I just love it. So.
Of course, America takes that in 1994 and 5 and turns it into a one-note joke, of course, because that's what we do. Yep. We can't deal with our emotions.
Right.
I kind of like Neil Jordan throwing that in our face and like, hey, I'm making an actually genuinely sensitive movie, and we're like, fuck you, that guy's got a dick.
Right, yeah.
That's the only thing we can think about.
And I think that's the biggest... you like I said during the movie, you couldn't make this movie today.
Nope.
Because you might clock Jaye Davidson a little earlier because we have so many more trans people that we deal with,
right.
And deal with sounds, but I don't mean to deal with, but on an everyday basis you see more trans people. So for me it's easy to clock him and realize that, okay, Dill's hiding something. Literally.
Yeah.
But that the fact that once Stephen Ray finds out and has a little bit of time to kind of deal with it, it's about the person.
Yeah.
Loving the person and not what's going on between their legs.
Yeah, that was one of the lines in the film was, of course, after he finds out what's going on with Dill and he's throwing up, and later on, Dill says, I could tell that you still cared about me even when you were throwing up. There's something really, I think, powerful about that scene alone because, one could look at it and go, yeah, I would do the same thing. I'd be so grossed out by that. And the thing that he wasn't ready for it.
Yeah.
So it shocked him, but then he also still really, really cared about Dill. And I that almost made me tear up a little bit, so...
What I found fascinating, and I thought Dill was absolutely in the right, is that we talk about people going into other spaces and not being aware of themselves. He was not aware of himself in the space that that they were in
Right.
at that time. I mean, it was pretty. She knew where she was and the bar that this guy had come into, and he, pretended not to because he was dickmatized.
Well, that was the thing that you brought up too, which I didn't realize it until you said it out loud. But throughout, we're going into this bar, this metro, and every time we go into it, you just see lots of beautiful people all around, singing, dancing, what have you. And then when he finally realizes the bar he's in, you can really definitely tell.
Well,
the clientele,
and it looks
more.
like what they did on purpose is they got some people who could not pass.
Yeah.
Who would be clocked immediately. Mm-hmm. That's who you see after he finds out.
Right, because early on it's rather androgynous, like there's a vibe at least.
Right.
But that being said, I don't know if it was if it was meant to be, oh, well, you know what? Now you're seeing the ugly truth, literally, of all these people that were in the bar before, or if we're just trying to knock you over the head with it. And I got a little bit of, we're trying to knock you over the head with it, because it is literally just some transvestites afterwards,
right?
Or people that are coded as transvestites instead of trans people who are trying to pass. I mean, it's, like kitty cat wigs and that kind of thing. Yeah, it's like, come on.
Yeah.
So to me, it was a little disingenuous after you find out the big reveal that Dill has penis. And I think that was meant to really, it wasn't there to open his eyes. So he sees it. I think now it's there to kind of show you that there's a little bit of ugliness that was there that you were missing.
So is that more for the viewer than it was for the actor then?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. I got that as that kind of took me out of it. I'm like, you know what? You could look at some trans people and realize that they're trans without some dude with a 5 o'clock shadow and deep lines in his face, that looks like Jack Klugman in a pussycat wig.
Right.
So
let's circle back to the early scenes. So Forrest Whitaker gets picked up by a woman at the carnival. That is Jude. She'll come back around later.
Amazing Miranda Richardson.
He gets taken, and then he and Fergus spend all this time together. Stephen Ray spend this time together while he's incarcerated, being held hostage, and they bond. They have legitimate, intimate conversations.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Well, but that's kind of where I got a little bit confused, because later on the way that they touch on it, it's like you're a volunteer. The way that they're looking at Fergus, was he actually part of this army, or was he just somebody who volunteered for the cause? I
think a lot of the Irish Republican Army were volunteers and people who were there for a cause. They were true believers. Okay. They weren't necessarily,
because it seemed like this
conscripted.
Yeah, they seem more like a mafia to me than anything. Yeah. So that makes now that makes a little bit more sense to me. But why he felt like, or why I guess. I think my brain's just I just didn't get it, because he was way too sensitive a person, from early on. He seemed, I get it, he had a bit of badassery to him, but he seemed like a very sensitive person, and it's like, you don't belong here, you don't belong in to this cause. It felt a little weird to me there at first.
There were choices made early on. Do you think with the look of Stephen Ray with the long hair, was that an intentional sort of feminine coding going on to kind of build in his sort of sensitivity?
No, I honestly, I just took it as a way to show you that he had changed his appearance later to go under the radar a little more. I don't think there was... I certainly didn't see...
So the way I was reading that early portion was that there is some sort of thing there between... Maybe more than just friendly thing between him and Forrest Whitaker, where, especially with the focus on Forrest Whitaker's mouth the way they did, I thought that was an intentional sort of intimacy that they were going for.
Yeah, but I see that, and I think that feeds into where Stephen Ray's character comes full circle at the end, where he's willing to accept that he's in love with a female who was a male biologically, where he's not... I don't know. I think if one of his compatriots in the IRA had been in the same situation, he would have killed Dill as soon as he found out. Mm-hmm. Whereas he had that sensitivity, and he was really bonding with Forrest Whitaker on a different level, and he wasn't scared to be intimate with a man. Mm-hmm. Not in the sexual way, but just in general, have intimate conversations and learn about another person. And that, I think, feeds into where he ends up with Dill at the end is, I'm not afraid of my sexuality or where it might take me, or, I'm not like, he's not a chaser or anything, but he's open.
Yeah.
To a lot, like he could be pansexual, if it could be coded that way, mm-hmm. Or he's demisexual. He's attracted to somebody once he gets to know them.
But it still seemed like he had some trepidations, because every time Dill called him honey, or he was just like, don't call me that, and I guess that kind of threw me off. It's like, is it just that you're not comfortable with being called that yet, or what? But
it started out that way, and then as you notice, as soon as Miranda Richardson came back into the picture and was setting him up to assassinate this judge,
right?
Then it was, don't call me honey for your own protection.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
That's,
that makes sense.
At least that's what I took it as.
Okay, yeah, I didn't, because even at the end when they were in the jail, I thought, and then he's like,
well, I think that's more of a kind of an endearment thing. It's like, don't call me that.
Right. Makes sense.
That's how they talk to each other. Neil Jordan's great about that, about building things into characters and allowing them to create a bond, with dialogue and the way people speak to each other.
Right. I agree. But then again, I really enjoyed this movie, but I think that there sometimes could be too much dialogue, and it would just, you had to slog through it a little bit. I just found myself kind of tuning out, just because it felt like some scenes were just going on way too long for me, but that was just for me.
Well, it's very dialogue heavy, but
right.
that's him.
But again, I don't know Neil Jordan from
that's
Michael
just
Jordan.
Well, boy, have I got some news for you. No, yes, it. I always think that movies that are over an hour and a half long could be a little shorter unless there's something going on all the time.
Right.
But I think this was just about the right length to get the character development in, and that was done mostly through dialogue.
Right.
And a little bit with his haircut and the changes of appearance.
Yeah, because he looked like Lovejoy at first, and then I liked the transition into the '90s smart male without the mullet. Yeah. He was Lovejoy. He was totally Lovejoy in the film. Nobody remembers that show. It's just me.
He's the guy in John Wick now.
Oh, is he in John Wick now? Oh, I gotcha. I did not know that.
We'll get to A&E Detective shows some other time.
We'll go back to that. Yeah.
If you're all right with that. So, what did you think of Forrest Whitaker's performance?
I mean, he's always, he always is Forrest Whitaker to me, but he just embodies the character. He was just kind of like, he knew this would eventually happen, and he was ready for it. I don't even think that initially when he realized he wasn't going to get away in that initial scene where he, jumps on Miranda Richardson and, you fucking bitch, I think he realized after that he wasn't going to get out of this no matter what. Even he even said it, if they let this guy go, they're still going to kill me. So, and I think he knew that. I really thought that I guess I wasn't sure until the very end that Stephen Ray did not let him go.
Yeah.
I thought he was letting him go, and he was, he was just going to say he fucked up, and because he kept saying I fucked up.
Yeah.
But I thought that he was going to let him go, and then, but then, I mean, I knew, I'd seen this movie years ago, and I was like, I guess he couldn't have, because then there wouldn't be any reason for him to go track down his lover.
Right.
So, but there was that, that will he or won't he that kept going on, and then, he's just going to let him run away, and then he's going to probably shoot the ground and say he killed him, and then boom.
Yeah.
Gets hit by a tank.
Well,
Spoiler alert.
Yeah,
I mean, spoiler alert. It's a little late for this.
I was going to say,
30-year-old movie.
time
You're
has
welcome.
passed.
It's a stunning scene and incredibly well staged.
Yeah.
And sad and unfortunate. Again, I loved the chemistry between Forrest Whitaker and Stephen Ray. Even Forrest with that accent that is something.
Yeah.
It is something.
That we had to turn on subtitles for just because we couldn't understand what he was saying. But, I mean, that's also, I mean, he sounded like he was from Tottenham. That actually made a lot of sense. I liked him because there was something very childlike about him. And you could, I mean, obviously, you're dating somebody like Dill, you're going to have a playful personality. But when it came closer to the time of him having to be shot, like, that's where I could really kind of see it. And there's just something that endeared it. Like, I got a little teary-eyed because I'm like, please don't kill him. Please don't kill him.
The one thing that got me was I think it might have had a little even more gravitas if he had shot him.
Yeah.
You know, he would have then tracked down Dill to feel, you know, because he felt so sorry for her.
Right.
And, you know, look what I did and how do I make amends? That's where I thought it could have, I mean, him getting hit by a truck was just a little convenient. Like, getting hit by the same truck that's coming to to rescue him. It's like, come on. But then, if he had shot him if he had shot him, and then the trucks rolled up, that's like the mist. That's the end of the mist. You know, it's like, oh fuck. You know, he would have gotten away, but you know, I think it would have had a little more weight to it if it hadn't been an accident. Because then you have Stephen Ray being the bad guy who's trying to become the good guy.
Right.
He was a good guy until he was a bad guy, and now he wants to be the good guy again.
See, I don't know if you could have... I don't think the English were actually interested in saving him, given the way that they bombed the hell out of that space.
With a hail of bullets. Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I don't know if they probably didn't know where he was at that point, but they didn't really seem to take much care in trying to make sure that anybody survived that.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure they weren't there to save him. Which is as a whole, again, that's very true of the whole war between Ireland and England. Like, England's willing to sacrifice a pawn to take a major victory if they can.
Yeah.
Has been kind of the heart of that conflict, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely.
The willingness on both sides to just kill as many people as you need to kill.
That's one of those things that I guess I never really studied as far as that. I don't know much about that conflict. I remember hearing about it, but I don't know much about it to even be able to comment on it. But.
Yes, this is not the podcast to discuss that.
Yeah. Is it though?
So let's get on to the introduction of Jaye Davidson into this story. Jaye Davidson, of course, is the lover of Forrest Whitaker's character. He's very much in love with Jaye Davidson's character, Dill, and he asks Stephen Ray to go and see her and make sure she's okay, and he does. We are introduced then to the character. Is it Nick? The guy in the bar. Her boyfriend.
It's called.
No, Dave.
Yeah,
Dave.
Moist
Okay,
guy with the windbreaker. Yeah.
Rick O'Lee from The Phantom Menace.
There it is.
He was in The Phantom Menace.
He looked. I liked him best once they put the collar on him with the windbreaker. I thought this is a whole look.
There's a character that somebody did on English television years ago called Lots of Money. It was a very funny parody, like this.
Enfield.
Like Thatcher era money, where guys in tracksuits with gold. Like, where did they get all this money from? It was from Thatcher's bullshit.
Yeah,
it made a lot of people very rich.
That's very much that guy.
That's very much that guy. Yeah. It was such a great character. And
White Ali G.
Yeah.
This completely just he's just a walking hard on this guy.
It's true.
But what do you think that, like, how Forrest Whitaker hasn't neither been dead nor gone long before Jaye Davidson is already having this relationship, or do you figure Jaye Davidson's Dill is having this relationship with Dave for a while, even as they were with Dill?
It didn't feel
with Forrest Whitaker.
I felt like they were sexually open enough that he was going to be in the army, so he was going to go away for a while, do what you want. I'll do what I want.
As long as we have each other when we see each other. Yeah,
there's
I got the same feeling.
Yeah, there's a difference between, monogamy and polyamory and all that. So
I also think there was an element too. I believe Dill mentioned something about being expensive. Like perhaps there was an element of Dill
being a sex worker.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I totally got that.
Yeah.
Especially if.
Which would make sense given the nature of Forrest Whitaker's character, that he would be the kind. He seems like the kind of guy who falls in love with the stripper at the strip club, like the kind of guy
really likes me.
that kind of sweet, naive sort of thing that they think they think every waitress is flirting with them.
Well, I mean, in this case,
I know too many of those guys.
They were, now what I took it is we are never told explicitly that Dill is trans.
Right.
We don't. The nature of Dill in that way. Yeah, I think transvestite and trans. It's such a that's where people who are prejudiced. I think like in the. I don't want to say the lighter side of prejudice. They just get so confused about what am I supposed to say?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that to me, Dill was coded as trans, and that people that go into this bar are looking for trans women, and that Dill is probably eventually going to have bottom surgery and top surgery because, did not have breasts.
Right.
And by expensive means, I'm expensive because I'm trying to make some money to have some surgeries.
Right.
That's why I took
Dill definitely claims like femininity, big time. That's a very important thing to Dill. So I would imagine you've got to be right about that.
Absolutely. And again, I said it before, I'll say it again. It just looked so fabulous. Every garment that they put on Jaye Davidson, it was so very 90s, but it was gorgeous to look at. It was like art, that gold dress with the circles. I can't get that out of my head.
And kind of amazing for the time that Neil Jordan has that sort of understanding that that's what this person is. It's like I'm not sure what exactly like when it comes to transvestites, like they just enjoy wearing the clothes or they enjoy.
So let me try to quote the movie To Wong Fu.
Please.
If a man puts on a dress to get his little rocks off, he is a transvestite. If a gay man with way too much fashion sense for one gender puts on a dress, he is a drag queen. And if a man has a little operation to become a woman, he is a transsexual.
There it is.
That's 1995. That's how Wesley Snipes put it.
Still one of the greatest movies.
I was just saying that when it comes to the understanding that he has that this character seems to want to be a woman.
That's why I took it.
Yeah.
Dill's living as a woman,
right.
So I took that as Dill is trans, not Dill is confused or a transvestite or a drag queen. Because if they were a drag queen,
they'd take it off when they got home.
They would take it off when they get home.
Right.
Drag queens don't wear drag 24/7.
Right.
Yeah. And Dill certainly. I mean, I for a while, initially I thought Dill was wearing a wig, but obviously it wasn't.
No, not until they
cut it all.
Yeah. It was one of the worst wigs I've ever seen.
Yeah, it was. At least glue the back down. Like that was my. I was staring at that for too long. But aside from that, yeah, very, very, like you said, like Nina Cherry.
Yeah, Nina Cherry the Bam.
Yeah, love it.
Amazing look, gorgeous.
Yep, flawless. And you could see why Stephen Ray would be attracted to all of it. Because, I mean, it wasn't just that. It aside from having to talk through the bartender a few times, which I still don't understand that. But there is a certain amount of charisma that Dill has. That I think any one of us would be drawn in by that.
If you have Jim Broadbent, you've got to use Jim Broadbent.
You've got to talk through Jim Broadbent all the time.
I mean, how else is Call going to be drawn into that scene?
Jeff, tell Sean to fuck off.
Sean, she wants you to fuck off.
I do that all the time now. It's great.
Should we do the entire podcast?
Right, just like that.
Sean, she says just like that.
Baby Jim Broadbent. Muppet Baby.
I don't know if this is his first, but yeah, he was younger.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
In his 50s, maybe.
No, I think he was young. He looks like he's like maybe 30s.
Oh, this was only 30 years ago, and I think he's in his 70s. So he's probably
Oh, is he?
40s,
Oh, okay. Well, regardless, it was nice to see him. It's always nice to see Jim Broadbent
He's
in a
so
movie.
good.
Yeah, he is so good.
And a lot of main character energy coming off of him.
It's true.
That's how you can tell with those supporting players. We're watching a movie for the other podcast, The Big Sleep, which they're like 3 female characters in that movie that basically come in with like major main character energy, and they're totally not. But I loved the energy that they brought to it. There's a cab driver, and it's really great.
I haven't watched it.
That's
in
pretty
year,
terrific.
So I have to rewatch it again tonight.
But yeah, Jim Broadbent bringing that, you can tell this person's supposed to be here and have this many lines. And there are actors that show up like that don't bring that kind of energy, but then they're still there, and you're kind of like, what are you still doing here? You don't get that from this character.
Right. He belongs there, really. Yeah.
There's no lie from Dill. She doesn't lie to him in any way.
Nope.
And that's an important part of it, because of the people who hate this movie and who hate trans people essentially treat it that way, treat it like this was a trick. A
major betrayal to a man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's totally not what's happening.
Not at all.
I personally think deep down he knew.
Yeah.
Because, he just... I think he knew, but he was sick when he threw up, quote unquote.
Right.
He movie threw up.
Yeah. He was gagging.
When that happened, I think he was just more like, finally he was letting that out of himself, that he was attracted to just people, not a gender or sexuality. He was kind of open to whatever. And I think that's where that's my reading of it now, looking back. I still think it's a super progressive movie for what...
Absolutely.
Where we're at now, where you couldn't make that movie.
Right. We kind of feared going into it. And this has happened to us every movie in 1993. You kind of fear going into it.
I blame the Leprechaun.
It's only been 30 years, but
right.
Each of these movies is deeply problematic in some way.
Yeah, because it's like, we had Loaded Weapon and now this. It's like, it's nice that we had a couple really good films to watch for once, and not The Temp, which I don't know if we should have done that one or not, but...
We'd probably still be talking about penises.
That's true. That's true.
Penises have come up on this podcast more often than the other podcasts for some reason.
Well, if you're making penises pop up, you're doing something right.
Oh, this is the only way I can make that happen, Jeff. Well, thanks, podcast.
Maybe it's Sean. I didn't specifically call you out.
Let's be honest.
So that scene, let's just go into that, because it's the most famous scene. It's the scene everybody talks about. Stephen Ray and Jaye Davidson are becoming intimate. Jaye Davidson, he takes off the what she's wearing, and
the robe.
There it is.
Yeah.
Just right down to the penis, and he reacts obviously in a way that, he's a guy who's still trying to figure out who he is, and that's really the sense of it that I got, is that he's just shocked.
Right.
And he thought he knew one thing, and he also thinks he knows something about himself.
Yeah.
He thinks he knows who he is, and he doesn't quite yet know who he is.
Right.
And that's got to be something for a guy his age, and he's got to be in his 30s at this point, this character, to not quite have a full grasp on who he is it's got to shock him. It's got to put him into a position where his reaction makes pretty good sense.
Well, for me, it was like the constant... I don't know if it was dreams or flashbacks where he would keep kind of invoking Jody in his mind, and I kept thinking there was something there.
Yeah,
there was something there, and
so
that's
too.
and so that's why you didn't that scene, the big reveal, didn't feel as you just remember everybody talking about it back then. We were in high school, and watching it, I think it was tasteful. Like it didn't shock. It was just, this is who I am. Here
it wasn't
is.
like horror movie music,
right?
But
like Sleepaway Camp. Yeah.
And we got to talk about like what comes after this too. Is a scene at the time that I didn't realize was as offensive as it is now. The Jim Carrey Ace Ventura scene.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
I saw that movie.
Really? So
I hated Jim Carrey so much at that point. I was
spoiler alert: Sean Young plays a character who is.
I've heard of it, but
he finds out about this. He figures out that Sean Young's character is a man, so he goes into the bathroom and vomits in that Jim Carrey sort of overly violent way. He takes a shower. He drinks like Drano or something.
He cries, doesn't he? Like
he
just
cries
bawling.
in the shower.
I remember that. Yeah.
He's like He's like loofahing his entire body to get it off of him, even though they've only kissed.
Yeah.
Like it's really gross and over the top and quite disgusting.
Doesn't hold up
when you reflect on it. But that joke is certainly not the only one. I think there was multiple.
I mean, there's still like you know that there's still guys right now that
and
like
they played
watch
the song
that.
too.
Yeah, of course they did.
They also played the crying game.
And there's still guys now who are just like, that's still fucking hilarious, man. And it's just not, But Jim Carrey's he's evolved so much as well. I don't think he would necessarily look back on that with great pride. I would think, but
I'd hope.
yeah,
I would hope. I don't think he's never really said anything.
Well.
He's also an anti-vaxxer, so it's hard to say exactly what spectrum he's on. He's a weird guy.
I like weird though. I also like vaccines, so I don't know how to weigh that out. But yeah, so and this it's again this aside from the gagging, the going into the bathroom, the being sick, it was just him.
And then,
calming,
Then you've got Jay Leno and late night TV just making the most obvious, lame, stupid jokes. And it's no wonder Jaye Davidson's like, fuck this, I'm done. Fuck you people.
Yeah.
Well, punching down is the worst form of comedy.
It really is.
And, as marginalized as trans people are nowadays, even still, 30 years later, it's gross and offensive. And I'm sure there are people who laughed at the Jim Carrey shit 30 years ago.
I might have. I don't remember.
Who are like, oh, God, that's cringy.
Yeah.
And I would hope so.
Yeah.
I would hope he thinks it's cringy and, just bitter that I don't want to talk about it rather than bring attention back to it and get people to watch it again. Whatever. This was a very sensitive movie on all fronts, and it really did feel like Neil Jordan was like, I want to talk about people's sexuality and how it's, it can be fluid and it's not something to push under the rug. I open up Grindr here and the number of blank profiles that are, straight
men.
quote unquote men who don't want to deal with the fact that they like dicks.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
If all the straight identified men who are into trans women here in Iowa, or the Midwest in general, just were open about it and could handle it, we would be so far advanced as a species and as a society that we'd have flying cars.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
You know what? Just tell your friends that you like dicks.
Figure out what it is that you'll enjoy and enjoy that. Why does that have to be? Why does it have to be wrong or a problem?
Why
as long as you're not hurting
explore,
anybody.
Just to go through it and say, okay, I did that. It is A for me. It's B not for me. It's
well, and it's a lot of American society. Like America's reaction to the Crying Game was Ace Ventura.
Yeah.
It's everything about America is 10 to 20
White
years
America.
later. Well, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. I know a couple guys who
aren't white,
are not white, who live here in the Midwest, in the very conservative small Midwest, who have their partners are transgender women who still have not had bottom surgery, and they are just open about it, and they're very happy with it, and they will tell their families. And their families overall will accept them,
right? At
least to their face. But if we had more of that and less of Jim Carrey, then think of where we'd be as a society.
People being comfortable with themselves enough to just be.
And it's just America is shame based.
Yeah, 100%. And that was also built off of the back of religion, and you could go down that whole thing there where we feel guilty if we feel, heaven forbid, just a little bit different Or,
There's a desperation sort of tribalism that goes on where I've got to identify myself and I've got to put everybody into a category and make sure that I understand who they are exactly, and you need to live within the box I put you in or I don't understand the world.
But I worry about that though too now, because now we have so many boxes, and it's just like I almost kind of miss the simplicity of this time. Because now we're, again, I'm all for, you can identify as a pillow. I don't give a fuck. But it just feels like we have too many ways to identify. I miss the...
I don't know.
I don't know.
I honestly don't think there's too many. I mean, I think there's more than we had when we were kids.
Yeah. But I mean, they were probably always around. They just didn't have them.
But I think that's coming from your desire to be sensitive to everybody.
Exactly.
And that's
I would hope so.
That's a good place for that to come from. You don't want to be offensive to anybody, so if you know what box they're in, it's easier to be a little sensitive.
That's true. Yeah. That is very true. Yeah.
It's the people who are anti-pronoun.
Fuck them.
My pronouns are Second Amendment. Well, that's great.
God created a man and a woman.
Yeah. Well, technically, though, if Eve was created from Adam's rib, then she has XY chromosomes.
Well, then...
Boom!
There it is. But I also don't believe that a woman came from a dude's rib.
No, I mean...
Wait, they gave... So that's... No. We're better than that.
But all the people are like,
Sorry.
it's Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve. Well,
why?
actually, it kind of is Adam and Steve, because...
It's weird, though, how long I've heard that. For years, I've heard that.
I remember dudes wearing those T-shirts. If we went out to clubs and there would be a dude that would have that on, I'm like, we're not friends.
Yeah.
Be gone. They also loved Kid Rock. I mean, come on, hand in hand. So.
Union is my spirit. Yeah, this is not probably a good podcast for conservative people.
No, definitely not. I mean, or it should be. I mean, this is a conversation you should be having.
Exactly.
Though. I mean, these are conversations that those people desperately need to have, because they need to understand that what you're doing, this hatred that you're enacting, is not healthy for you, and it's not healthy
You're living
for
out of
society.
fear. That's all it is.
Well, and look at the movie. I mean, the movie tells you that.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about hating somebody for who they are. It's about loving somebody for who they are and who you are. It's just, if everybody got that message instead of like, oh my God, I saw a dick. I guarantee you, like, the people who saw this in the theater who were super shocked and got up and walked out desperately crave dick. Their browser histories are filled with trans porn.
I'm telling you, just stop being ashamed about it, man. It's okay. Like what you like, but do it in private. Don't do it in front of me, but do whatever you do and enjoy it. Find what you like and just enjoy that. Don't be ashamed of it.
It's nothing to be ashamed about.
Right.
But we're a puritanical society, so everybody has to be, oh my God, if I have sex, I'm going to hell.
What was the name that you were going to call Marjorie Taylor Greene? Was it Carrot Dyke?
No,
was
carrot
that?
cunt.
Carrot cunt.
Carrot cunt.
Carrot cunt.
Like, that is the weirdest
That's the dumbest insult I've ever heard.
I fucking love it, though.
I've tried in my head to unpack what that could possibly be about. And I mean, carrots
knows,
are
obviously.
orange and like they're dick shaped. I guess. Is that a dick shape? That's not a dick shape.
All I know is that
That'd be a weird dick shape.
My friends who do a podcast somehow brought up like somebody being into having a carrot in their ear, and that's all I could think of after carrot cunt. So
is it similar to an insult like fire crotch? But she's not redhead.
No,
she's not a redhead.
no.
She's not a redhead, so that doesn't make sense.
No.
Again,
I mean, unless they're talking about the fact that she has a penis.
maybe she drinks carrot juice, and then when he sucks her dick.
You cunt tastes like carrot. Or you're just gonna call him a cunt, but then you realize, oh, I can make a dick joke.
There it is. Carrot cunt.
Carrot cunt.
I'm mad because, again, we're talking about, like
a detective.
Irish people and, British people, and I wish they would have said clunge instead of cunt, because clunge is one of the funniest fucking words.
I've never
Look
heard
it up.
that.
Look it up. They sewed up their clunge. It's one of the funniest fucking things I've ever heard. It's a great word.
Well, I know I'm not going to get kicked off Twitter again until Elon learns that word.
Right. He won't. He's not worldly.
He's not intellectually curious.
It's true. It's so true. Regardless.
Think he's ever seen this movie?
Well, so he really hates trans people and has a trans child. So he's let all the transphobes back on Twitter. He's always agreeing with J.K. Rowling, the turf from fucking hell. So I guarantee you, if he's seen this movie, he's like, we should do a movie where they make fun of it. And then somebody tells him about Ace Ventura. He was like, good on Jim Carrey for doing that. He's such a clown.
He's a clunge.
When you look around and see who you end up on your alignment, like if you're sitting there next to Kevin Sorbo and Scott Baio, you should know that something's gone wrong.
Well, then you know you're at Subway.
You are on the wrong side of history here. When
Welcome
you're
to
standing next
Shakies.
to Hercules
I'm Scott.
and Chachi.
I'll be your. Oh,
Fuck you, Scott. Fuck all y'all. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm sorry that they're I guess they're as far as people like that's movie taste. I mean, you're gonna go Billy Madison, and you're not gonna go higher than that. You know what I mean? Like you're not gonna seek out.
Observation.
You're not right, and you're not gonna seek out films that might challenge you because I like it right here in my little bubble, and I have zero intellect. So,
I mean, everybody knows by now that I'm a huge horror nerd, and I will literally sit and watch the Terror Train remake sequel on Tubi. Go watch it. It's kind of stupid.
Now I have to.
Before I'm going to watch All Quiet on the Western Front for 3 hours.
Sure.
Well, so one of the things about horror that's very interesting is how it challenges normalcy. It is outside the bounds of good taste. It is something that forces you into a place where you're confronting something that no one wants to confront, that death and danger and the blood that's supposed to be inside your body is outside your body.
What?
Well, if you're looking at Crying Game and a movie that's about like loving yourself and trans issues and all that, I mean, there are like Psycho. Psycho is possibly a movie about somebody who has trans feelings or and can't handle them, so then takes on a murderous personality. Dressed to Kill, Brian De Palma, one of my favorite movies. Yeah. And I know a lot of trans people who love that movie, even though it can be seen as transphobic. And I know that there's a lot of, a lot of people, it's such a, it's a problematic movie. And I'm like, but it's, it's showing you that all trans people aren't, sunshine and happiness.
Right.
And the pathology of this killer isn't actually trans, and that was like the whole Silence of the Lambs thing. Love that movie. It does have some problematic issue, and when it was in 1991 when it came out, yes, that's a problem because you are showing a quote unquote trans character who's not, but they do state in the movie Billy is not really a transsexual. That's the actual phrase, but he thinks he is due to years of abuse.
Right.
But as we just talked about, a lot of the people who would watch The Crying Game and root for, Jim Carrey are the people who would see The Silence of the Lambs go, yep, all trans people are murderers.
Right. Yep.
Forced repression is trauma. I mean, it is. When you're telling somebody that they're not allowed to be who they know they are, you're creating a trauma.
Right.
Some people don't even know that they're being told not to be that person. Like, it's just so ingrained in their family that
blue and
just
pink.
Don't talk. Yeah, 100%.
Gender reveal parties are the dumbest thing already.
Agreed.
But the idea that you're going to do that to a child before they even have a chance to figure out who they are.
Unless you come out to your parents and you say, yes, I was born a boy, but I feel that I'm a woman, and they throw you a gender reveal party in your teens or 20s.
I'll take that.
Then it's okay. That's all right.
Because it's then it's just turning that norm on its head.
Right.
Like throughout horror movie history, there's been all these movies that have dealt with this issue. Some of them better than others.
Right.
But I think if this movie was very challenging, I think to a lot of people. And still would be today, even more so with the whole groomer bullshit.
Oh God, yeah.
Anti-trans, anti-gay thing that that they're literally just using to win Cletus's vote. I mean,
100%.
And it's so brazenly calculated and disgusting. That you know they think so little of these people who are uneducated that they're going to use their miseducation or non-education against other people. It's just.
I mean, it's what they did to black people. I mean, it is. They've been making you, forcing you to be afraid of things that are different than you, and convincing you that that's the right way to be. That's what they did to black people all the way from the time that the slavery came to an end through today, trying to convince people that you should be afraid of what is different from you.
Well, that's like a lot of people misinterpreting the Bible for how fucking long. You know, anybody can take their own story from it, but I mean, these people are like literally saying that, you know, gays were bad in the Bible and this kind of stuff. When actually, if you read some of these passages, some of them are pretty shitty, stone, whatever, that kind of shit, but the misinterpretation, to me, it's like you're reading the Bible and you're only cherry picking what you want to fit your narrative.
Everybody does that with every piece of...
That's the nature of the Bible itself. It was created to manipulate people into being afraid and being loyal to whatever person was in power.
Recreated and recreated and recreated.
Yeah. Adding addendums.
There was a viral TikTok of this woman with a 5 head who... she's a Bible scholar, and all she really does is have 50 Bibles at home.
Of course.
She's talking about how, I think it was Matthew 21, or Matthew 17, 21, whatever, was missing the new Bibles. And she's like, they're trying to kill us. And like, I mean, come on. If you
Take
know
the tinfoil off.
Have you heard the King James Bible? Why is it called the King James Bible? Look it up. Do your research. You know? I mean, it's just like
a constant comeback of idiots.
Old Testament, New Testament, like the Bible continuously changes.
I like the kids' version Bible, Bibles for animals. I mean, they've got them everywhere. They just, you know, it's all about interpretation.
Amy's cat has a Bible.
My cat has a Bible, but I mean, not really religious. We're pretty much agnostic in my house, but you know, it's for aesthetics.
Yeah,
you know. I have the Dancing Jesus book in my bathroom. That's what you do when you take a shit. You watch Jesus dance.
Somebody said, what made you become agnostic or atheist? And I said, I read the Bible.
I watched a TikTok the other night of somebody, she's like, and you know what? I sat down, I read the Bible, and I cried. And I just thought, what are you you never read the Babysitter's Club books? I mean, like, what are you missing in your life? That like what is in there that would make you cry? It's a great work of fiction. It's beautiful. I get that. But come the fuck on. Read Anne Rice. Read something else. There's better writers out there. Better books. On the road, Jack Kerouac. Come on. Just saying.
You really, this conversation took a turn.
That's what happens on this show. Usually we end up at Willem Dafoe's dick.
You know, we're always hailing, you know, Prochnow. I mean,
Jürgen Prochnow.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about Jürgen once this time.
1993.
Yeah.
This is true. Where is he?
He's the main star.
He should have been in this movie.
He should have been in this. Actually, you know what? I bet he was. I bet he was somewhere in the background. They were in Europe.
He played the one who was singing Let the Music Play by Shannon.
I love that version. I was dancing to that.
He could pull that off.
Only Jürgen could. So at least we mentioned you, Jürgen. We didn't want you to think that we forgot about you.
It's 1993. If you don't mention him, you're the only one.
You were legally, you can be stoned to death. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. What was the movie? He did a movie with Madonna, didn't he?
Yeah.
Body of Evidence.
Body of Evidence.
Oh, that's right. He was in Body of Evidence.
Yeah. He was amazing.
Unforgettable.
Unforgettable.
Except for me who forgot.
Well, I mean, you know, I just kept... Again, we kept just talking about the exceptional length of Willem Dafoe's cock during pretty much that whole podcast. So... abnormally, uncomfortably, confusingly.
For me, the Jürgen movie that really gets me going is The Seventh Sign.
Oh, you know what?
Demi Moore.
Oh, what was that, 87? 88?
So, yeah, like late 80s.
I was going to say, because she had long hair in it.
It's only the biggest hit of 1988. Where were you?
Fuck off. I was listening to The Jets.
How did you know? Because I never told.
You found out. I got a crush on you. I used to change the word I got a crush on food. It was really appropriate at the time, because I did, especially cheese.
You can think of another podcast that goes from Neil Jordan to the Jets.
If you can find one.
Just telling telling you. That's how we should promote this always.
This movie is incredible.
It is. I love it.
Oh yeah,
It's even take all the other stuff, take all the gender issues out of it for just a moment. Just it plays like a sort of like a Sam Spade or a Philip Marlowe movie in a way, because we're talking about Marlowe movies this week on the other show, and there is kind of a detective noir aspect to the action that he takes, especially once he arrives in England and goes looking for her and trying to make amends. There's sort of a 40s noir aspect to that.
Yeah.
I really like Stephen Ray. Like, I really enjoyed, like, it was so subtle, everything that he did, but it was just, he was a very kind of light, kind. Like, I looked forward to seeing where he was going to go, and I just kept thinking, God, please don't shoot him in the back. I was so afraid he was going to get killed, or when he was tied up in the bed, I'm like, Dill, don't kill him. Please don't kill him. So, I really liked his performance, and I loved Jaye, so...
It's a complicated journey that he's on throughout, and he can easily be forgot in amidst all these much more colorful characters who are doing bigger things.
Right.
But he's got a very complicated thing. His entire identity is shifting as this movie is going on, and he's sort of realizing who he is from beginning to end, via his relationship with Forrest Whitaker, and then his relationship with Dill, and also his relationship to Ireland and to violence, and what he's willing to do to. For his country or for who he is.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's a lot to play.
That is. And what something else that I noticed, and maybe, I don't know if you did, I love Miranda Richardson, so I'm always happy to see her at anything. But I like how kind of 90s blonde dowdy she was in the beginning, just being part of that army, and then
very denim.
Yeah, entirely. And then we see such this, we're in England now, and she's so polished, she's got that blunt cut, and something very fabulous about that change, I don't know. And again, she played that character so very well. I didn't realize, when we see her, again, very kind of beige looking of a character, kind of your boring basic. And then to see her manipulate him later on, and she just has the look, like she's, she's going to be manipulating him somehow.
Well, I think they're all coming into their true selves.
Yes.
And that's her true self, is the hard bitch.
Right. And she plays it well.
Yeah.
Yeah, quite well.
And by the end, everybody is either dead or their true selves, or they've become their true selves, so they're killed.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Although I do recall, I don't think it was French and Saunders. Somebody did, and again, if it was French and Saunders, they're good friends with Miranda Richardson, but they kept trying to kill one of their... they're doing a parody. They kept trying to kill one another, and she just wouldn't die. And I kept getting that. I'm like, okay, that's where that came from, because she got shot 5, 10, 15 times. Wouldn't fucking die until that one went through her neck, and it's like, finally, shut up, bitch. Damn. So, yeah. No, I like this movie. I would tell people to watch it. Not just as don't make it a sociology experiment or anything like that, but go into it and appreciate it for what it is, especially for the time it came out and for the whole story.
How is this movie so much more incredibly thoughtful than we are today? It really is something when you think about it.
Is that a testament to Neil Jordan then?
Well, Neil Jordan, it's not an American movie. Mm-hmm. Europe and everybody is so much more progressive than we are on issues like this. And
they're laughing at us. I mean, they laugh at us.
It's been a fucking joke for a long time.
When we spend so much time focused on this, the rest of the world is just laughing at us.
They just think we're a bunch of cunts. Clunges, if you will. And they are correct.
Yes.
No, we don't want to be. We just were born here, Sad to say.
Yeah, I think that, we have to really look at what what this movie could teach people who aren't there yet. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Just about looking inside yourself to see who you are comfortable being, mm-hmm. and why are you only comfortable being that.
Right.
Why aren't you comfortable being what you truly desire? Mm-hmm. not in some weird Ayn Randian kind of thing.
No, but imagine
being true to yourself.
Look at the studies of anxiety and depression in so many people, and I think a lot of that has to do with self-identification. Mm-hmm. If you don't know yourself, the lower you're going to go. Your self-esteem is going to go down. I think that's one of the biggest problems. That's why we have suicides. That's why we have unaliving, which I think is a bunch of bullshit.
That's a TikTok thing. You're not allowed to say the word suicide.
You can't say it on YouTube or anything like that too. Murder, death, suicide, these words have impact, and I think that that's important to bring up, is that if you're not able to just be yourself authentically, and again, I don't like to use that word a lot because it's thrown around a lot too, then you are going to have these problems. And especially now, we just see the rise in that. So if you could just maybe talk to somebody and help yourself come to terms with whoever you are, you're going to be a lot fucking happier.
There's something that conservatives should understand, is that I when I was 21 years old, I was listening to Rush Limbaugh.
Yeah.
I was,
You were an entirely different person.
2 years sober. Congratulations, Rush. Yeah, the other day was the 2-year anniversary. The last pill he took.
But I don't really know what it was that made me realize why that was such a bad thing. I didn't get the overall impact of being that way. I guess I was more of an economic conservative. Or so I thought. Which
is funny because conservatives always run up the national debt, and progressives have to bring it back down every 4 years. It's like.
But I was I guess it was more of I thought a CEO should run the country like a business, that kind of nonsense.
Oh, God, you got your wish.
I was a child.
No, that's, and again, but you didn't stay at that, you were 23, 24 when things started to turn around.
I would like to think that I've always felt this way about people, being kind to people, I would think.
Yeah.
I was, not as a child, I was a dick as a child. You had a friend, I was a prick to him.
You told me that until you realized that I was gay, that you didn't really like gay people.
I was very confused.
And that's a big theme, is people dislike LGBTQ everything until they realize they know somebody. And I think that this movie should have been a big step, but of course we just concentrated on the dick.
Well, and again, my friend David, my, very first gay best friend was in 4th grade, 10 years old. And imagine a kid 10 years old telling you he doesn't feel like everybody else. So he kept trying to have girlfriends. And I'm like, but you don't even like these people. No, but, and he lived in fear.
He didn't want to be hurt.
Right.
And by people like me.
And then, but Sean, again, you weren't the type of people that,
No, I watched him
get
a follower
jumped.
of that.
Yeah.
Of a group
he got a good pounding to the face several times, and that wasn't
No, I didn't do
your type of homophobia. It wasn't your brand.
I have somebody who in my family who's a follower and has always been, and I didn't realize that until years later, and I look back and I'm like, all the trouble that this person got in was because they were following the crowd. Mm-hmm. They, all the conspiracy bullshit that they listened to in the 90s, they were just following an older person who believed all that and taught them all that, right. And has never, ever been able to break free of that. They think, I'm a libertarian, I'm a free thinker, I'm all that. No, you're really not.
You're not.
You have, because all you ever do is drive around listening to Rush Limbaugh or Sean Hannity or all these people who are lying to you to take your money.
Yep.
That came out this week. If you're listening in the future, that came out this week. That people like Sean Hannity, they don't believe any of this bullshit.
No,
I've said this for years. They don't care. It's not going to affect them because they have money, and the more people they get to believe their bullshit, the more money they have. Yep. And that is how this is with this other person who's in my life. I think could potentially have broken free, but now it's more,
Once you get to a certain point, you're so set in your ways then too, and it's why
set in your ways, but also it's at a certain point you start trying to justify who you've become, justify the choices
you're
that
lying
you've
to
made.
yourself. Yeah,
you
believe the lie.
You invent things that kind of fit your. It's like
your narrative. Yeah,
if you're gonna call me out on my bullshit, then I'm going to double down on that bullshit, because then it just pisses you off, and then that's how I've seen like Joe Rogan.
I heard
100%.
I heard a great comparison on this YouTube video. The guy was talking about cryptozoologists and how a cryptozoologist is not a real zoologist. What they do is they set out, I'm going to find Bigfoot because Bigfoot exists. I'm not going to prove Bigfoot exists. Bigfoot already exists. I'm going to find the things that support that idea. Oh. And that's not what science is.
Right.
That's not how that works.
That's politics.
Or it's like archaeologists used to go around with a Bible in one hand and a pickaxe in the other. And just, I'm going to prove that the Bible was real. And again, that's not how archaeology or any kind of science works. You can't go into it with having a thing. And I think a lot of people go into it, I've got this idea of what the world is, I'm going to prove that the world is that way.
Right.
And they can't let that go.
Yeah.
It's the foundation of who they become, and if you take that away from them, it's like it's taking their identity from them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, like, this person they are very much, it bothers you that I call this person a tranny instead of trans? Well, I'm going to double down, and I'm going to keep calling them that, and I'm going to say that word as much as I can. And, it's...
Even at a mature age.
Oh, yeah.
Which blows my mind.
Yeah, you're pushing 50 and you're still using that word?
That's cute. You sound like a 16-year-old asshole, And
they're just like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to say the N-word.
Yep.
You know what?
Poke the bear.
Go with God.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go with, you do that. You go right ahead.
The Bible is a Horcrux, by the way. Yeah. Just saying.
Yeah. Fuck J.K. Rowling. Fuck you, Joe. Fuck you. Joe Rowling, not Biden. I don't care one way or the other about him. But it's that thing that I get all the time, having moved back to the Midwest from the coastal elite. Is the people on the coast don't care about me. I'm like, they do. You just don't want to listen to them because they live on the coast, and you've been told that they're the coastal elites,
right?
And you're following, instead of following your heart, you're following the crowd. Yeah. And
believe the lie.
Yeah. You believe the lie. You believe your confirmation bias is showing because, if they're a drag queen, they want to rape kids. And then you go to church on Sunday where they're actually raping kids.
Right.
Come on.
I mean, I'm sure there's pedophiles reading books to children that we don't know about yet, but I mean, they're out there.
And this is something that I had a conversation with a trans friend about The Silence of the Lambs years ago, and this was way after. This was like 10 years ago, so it had been out for 20 years. And when that movie came out, that movie really hurt me, is what I heard, and I understood that, and I said, okay, if that movie were released today, would you feel the same way? Not necessarily, because we have other trans stories and whatever. And I said, that's the thing, is time kind of makes things, takes the sting off of things. Yeah. But you also see, movies like Ace Ventura, and you're like, oh, it's disgusting. It's like, and I hear that. It's a different time. Yeah. Yes, it's a different time. But if you're actively seeking to hurt somebody, even if it's 50 years ago.
Yeah, doesn't matter.
It reads a little different than, I get where Marlon Brando is dressed as a Japanese person is problematic. It was a different time.
Yeah.
As opposed
generationally
I mean, that's the thing where it's like, you can look at that and you'd be like, oh, Mickey Rooney, what the fuck are you doing?
Good God.
That is the most racist portrayal ever.
Yep. Absolutely. I mean, that is actually right next to John Wayne as Genghis Khan. Like those
entirely.
Two,
that's Al Jolson level.
Yes, absolutely.
It is. It is.
But, Rita Moreno said something recently, and I'm paraphrasing, but she said, when I was coming out and coming up, and I was coded as just, white, and all the people that were playing the Spanish people in the movies were white.
Natalie Wood.
Natalie Wood. There you go.
Yeah.
And then she said that she could have played Maria, is what
entirely.
I think that's what I heard. And
yeah.
She said I should have been playing Maria, not Natalie Wood, right. Something to that effect. And you think about it now, and you're like, okay, we've come such a long way, but we are still stuck.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to continue to be stuck until people say, maybe I'm wrong. even entertaining the thought that maybe I'm wrong about certain things.
Yeah. Anything. Well, I mean, because, again, you're taking accountability.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that's so rare these days anymore, so...
That's the thing that frustrates me so much about these people who torment, or a trans person will say something about their identity, and then this person will just automatically just jump in to disagree with them. Just to disagree, just to create an argument. And
it's a troll.
Just take a moment to listen to what they're saying. It's like the cancel culture people are just they're so stupid. I'm sorry, you're dumb. Nobody's being canceled. They just want you to listen for a moment to understand why what you said hurt them. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
If you take it in and you just listen to and try to understand, you said something, and you didn't mean to hurt anybody, but you did.
Right.
And so just try to understand why it is that what you said was
bothers
hurtful.
somebody. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's not that complicated, guys. You don't have to lose your entire life. You lose your entire life when you double down on that and go, no, fuck you people.
Yeah.
I like to misgender those people. Sir, this is a Wendy. I'm not sir, I meant, no, you are sir.
You are sir.
From now on, you are, I will never, I don't respect your pronouns, sir.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that drives people nuts. If I'm trolling on Twitter and I do that, I'm just like, rub my hands together and going,
all right. Yeah. That's, well... I think about those people too, that especially, and Twitter's like the worst.
Oh, it's gotten even worse.
Oh, and I still have a profile, but I heard that Elon was going to get rid of profiles that have been inactive, and I've been inactive for like a year. So
go type hi Elon, I'm alive.
Go fuck yourself, asshole. No, but it's on Twitter. It's all of those people that go on there, and then they purposely try to bring these discussions to the fore because they think that they're the woke one, it's like, this, guess what, this is how life's always been, this is how life's always gonna be in America, and you better just fucking get used to it. Lauren Hobart, that kind of shit. Yeah,
she's got the weakest chin.
I fucking hate her. Are you kidding?
If people had to wear glasses on their chins, hers would fall off. Weak, characterless chin on a shrill, annoying woman who obviously wishes she had a penis, and that's why she carries guns all the time.
That's so true. Packing that heat.
Her husband who shows his penis to teenage girls.
Yeah, but be afraid of the crying game. Yeah.
Some of these conservatives who say these offensive things are genuinely trying to understand. They just don't know quite how to do it. Like, they're trying to understand this situation. They're trying to make sense of it, and it doesn't make sense to them. And so many people on our side are unable to or unwilling to try to explain it in a way that makes sense to them, too.
No, but totally. I explained pronouns to someone we're all related to. Mm-hmm. I don't get it. Why do I have to know somebody who, why do I have to call them he, him, if they were, if I can just tell? Mm-hmm. And I said, it's just a matter of respect. Mm-hmm. And if you respect that person and they say, hey, my pronouns are they, them, you're not really changing anything about their language, because if you're saying, oh, Amy was over the other day and they were, they were sitting there and we were having a beer. And
we used to always say stuff like that without even thinking it. Yeah.
But, the fact that I have tried to explain things, people either want to learn and they're genuinely curious,
or it's willful ignorance,
or they're just throwing bombs.
Yep.
And they those are the people that I'm like, you know what? I'm going to start talking about your mother.
Well, again, this kind of caustic energy, you have to admit, came a good 5-6 years ago, because we had a person in office who just allowed this to get worse and worse and worse.
Who's even worse now?
Who's even worse now?
It's always.
I don't know if you heard what he said the other day, but he says when he's coming back to office, he's getting rid of all gender-related care. It's all gone. Nobody gets to have
that is the smallest dick energy I've ever heard in my life.
Gender-affirming care is going away
if
he gets elected. Yeah. He made that very specific.
Things that are gender-affirming care are boob jobs, penis enhancement, pumps,
we got to protect the children.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
The children.
Well, let's protect the children from somebody who pimps his 14-year-old daughter out allegedly
Fuck him.
I'm sorry. I'm just,
But I mean, again, like, I don't even mean to bring it
allegedly.
up. But, like, but it just feels like it got more caustic with him.
Oh.
You know?
How are you able to not be sensitive to a child who has these questions?
Right.
That blows my mind. Because a child comes to you and tells you that they're confused about this and they're trying to understand, they have these particular feelings that they have. How are you not immediately sensitive to that?
I'll tell you, you know what? When I was 10 years old, I was in the bathroom with Mom, because, Mom was always on the toilet and I had to bother her. And I went and I started combing my hair. My hair was always really short. And I said, Mom, I think I want to be a boy. And she goes, you do? Well, what would you change your name to? And I'm like, I have no idea. But I just remember saying that. And then later I'm going, no, I'm going to stay a girl. But, like, I didn't get, like, you get out of here. You don't ever say that. Like, she was never like that. That's the kind of parenting we're missing these days.
Think of the amount of press and amount of clicks and stuff that when Shiloh Jolie Pitt would wear boys' clothes because that's what she felt more comfortable in.
Yep.
And she just thought, I love boys' clothes. I'm going to wear those. And Angelina Jolie or Brad Pitt, both of them would say, that's just what she's more comfortable. Never, but there's all this speculation about a 4-year-old child.
Yeah.
Oh, are they trying to make their 4-year-old child into a boy? No, look at her now. She's wearing ball gowns and shit on the red carpet. And it's literally just something that almost all kids go through at one point or another.
It's our own journeys.
And it's like everybody questions themselves. I like to say, you choose to be gay. Okay, well, how many male-on-male sexual exploits did you go through before you decided to choose to be with a woman?
I think of David Cross's bit on that one. It's like, yeah, we're choosing to be gay. We love to go out to the gay bars and get our heads smashed in by, asshole. Come on.
It's stuff like that. It's like every kid has questions about this kind of stuff. And if you are absolutely not allowed to talk to children about this kind of stuff, it creates even more confusion as they grow, especially for the kids who are LGBTQ, who I never had anybody to talk to about that. I had to learn through truck stops and rest. No. Am I telling you? No, there was literally not a single person I could tell.
Yeah.
Other than, somebody I may or may not have hooked up with in high school. They're the only people that knew because my parents were not conservative, but uneducated.
Right.
My dad would be like, I'm just some dumb hick. He would say that kind of like, look at you calling me a hick or whatever. But they really were not educated about this kind of stuff, how to talk to your children. Gen X is kind of the first generation who kind of all collectively says, you know what, it's not that serious.
Right. But there's a reason behind that.
Yeah.
It's how we were taught to. It's the lessons that, that we didn't learn, that we had to teach ourselves over time.
Oh, yeah.
It's also every generation reacts against the generation before them. So our previous generation to us was kind of assholes. And we just actively tried to defy them. And that just happens to turn into more being, I want to say tolerant, but like open to the ideas at least.
Yeah, because there's too many boomers that will double down on, why white people should still only have their whites-only restaurants and shit like that. There's still people that exist that are like that. And that's why I don't give a shit about boomers. But however, we had our parents very liberal, entirely liberal. And to the day they both died, that's how they were. And I appreciate that. But there was still that... And again, for me, I think it was the Catholic guilt kind of thing, because my dad was going to be a priest, there was so much that they both held in and stuffed down because they were trying to do that with their own parents,
How drunk would that church be?
Oh, shit.
There's already a stockpile of wine. I think he would have been fine.
I feel like he just would have been hitting on all the nuns, and that just would have been really creepy. But, yeah.
I just think that as we, I'm 50 years old, and I never, ever, ever thought I would be back in the Midwest, living as an out gay man, talking about shit like that over the quote-unquote radio, as my coworker. Oh, you have a radio show? Yeah, I sure do.
It's Get out your little transistor.
You're 3 years older than me, and you don't understand the concept
Podcast,
of
right.
podcast. But yeah, I mean, I never ever thought that something like this would happen, or that, you know, we'd be discussing a movie like The Crying Game and then morph into
Everything after that.
you
Yeah.
know, talking about Margie Three Toes. But
Wow.
This is what my idea of podcasting is.
It really is. It evolves, it devolves, it evolves again.
And somehow we end up on Kevin Bacon's penis. I don't know.
Every time, 6 degrees.
I've only been on Kevin Bacon's penis twice. And it was when I was living in LA. Kidding, I have never fucked.
Bottom line is just everybody just understands sexuality is a spectrum. It's a spectrum, just like anything
And a beautiful
else. It
spectrum
doesn't-
at that.
Live on it where you want, and let others live where they want, and you know, that's it.
None of your
What is
business.
the Bible said? You know that
For
book,
fuck's sake.
Judge not, lest
Yes,
ye be judged.
Oh, we don't like that part.
Yeah. Again, that doesn't suit our fancy. We'll write an addendum to that later on.
I can't make
you know?
money off of that one.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
They said at Red Lobster, eating shellfish.